absolutely sucked. Came into Lime Rock feeling pretty confident, but obviously, where did that really get me? Nowhere. 0 race finishes.
Unfolding already, and look at this battle for that 10 spot. Look at that scrum of cars heading into Big Bend.
And Lee Womble has gone off at turn 2 to the inside wait, mowing the grass as he really was. And again, she is stumbling.
Yeah.
And it's been got a problem. There's something not right with this car.
The next step is I sent all the data to my guy, Rick at Haltech, and he actually forwarded it to the team in Australia, and they're gonna take a look at it as well. And any ideas that they have for me to fix it, I'm gonna listen to them, they're the experts. If I need to rewire some grounds, if I need to, fix some voltage situation, I'm gonna try it. And then of course, I already bought a replacement pedal position sensor. And then the other thing that's kind of, tricky with this whole issue is everything seemed to work just fine in the paddock and driving it around and doing a pace lap. It only really faulted out if I was pushing it hard on track, which means this is gonna be really hard to diagnose in the garage. I'm gonna have to probably take it to a track. Once again, I'm gonna just shotgun approach it, try to fix as many things as I can. I'm gonna take apart the entire cabin harness and I'm going to inspect it thoroughly. I'm gonna unsheath all the wires, make sure every wire is good, make sure there's no short, and then I guess go from there. So, all right. So I designed this plate to be removable in situations like this, to where I can remove basically the entire brain of this car. So a bunch of couplers that just got undone. That's the power post to the battery. So if you follow it here, you would eventually end up at the battery, and then on the other side it goes to the alternator. Here's the ground for the plate. So this whole setup here, this is the Y-wire harness, and this coupler here, these are the locks. It's kind of hard to see, but that's the lock that I was talking about that would come undone, and then the pins would get pushed out. So obviously not ideal. And then it's just the Checkered Sports ECU mounting plates. Pretty nice setup. Just bolts to the car with some weld nuts. Now the reason that I think it might be related to this ECU plate is because if you guys might remember, at Gingerman, we had that fuel pump wiring burn out. So something might be going on within this harness that caused that issue and might have been related to this sensor issue as well. There you go, there's the whole ECU plate, ECU, wideband, CAN bus expansion, the 4 couplers, so this is headlights, fan, blinkers, everything on the front end of the car, so everything forward. This is the front cabin, so this is throttle pedal position, brake pressure sensor, clutch pressure sensor, probably some other things here related to defrost. And this is rear cabin, like fuel pump. Well, it used to be fuel pump. I had to depin this because it got burned out, so that's the thing I gotta check. Rear tail lights, reverse lights, blinkers, and then this last pit here, this is the CAN, the Blink Marine button pad. All of these here, these are all relays, fuses, and these are the micro PDMs that are controlled by that CAN button keypad, and this kind of goes through all these relays, and then these relays are activated through these guys basically send low amp voltages to these relays, which activates them. So, you know, fans, ignition, starter, low beam, high beam, brake lights, wipers, and then defrost grid, and then there's just fused outputs here. You know, you get your C101 plug, which is all the stuff that goes to the cabin. This is the extra plug for the harness, and then this guy here, you can ignore that. And then, yeah, the ECU is mounted on these rubber isolators to kind of isolate the ECU from vibration. Let's take this apart. I'm probably gonna bring this inside to my office, a little bit more comfortable work environment, and let's tear this thing down. In the office, didn't really record much last night. I tore apart the entire ECU plate harness. Now, this is a checkered sport plate, and I have basically everything bolted to this. And then this whole guy, it's kind of hard to do this with one hand, is basically mounted like so on these guys. Turn it over, flip it over, and this is what it looks like underneath. I partially disassembled it. I didn't really find anything too concerning, long story short, which is kind of unfortunate. The only really thing that I'm not too entirely pleased with is there's a lot of man, I can't talk today. There's a lot of dirt and debris that pulls up where all the wiring is exposed. And I put this foam here because this plate is basically kind of mounted on the floor of the chassis. And if water got into the chassis in a rain race, I didn't want it to kind of flow up and underneath where all the electrical stuff is. So I put this foam up to kind of prevent that. But what I might do, I might just close all of this off and just foam this whole thing just to make sure no dirt and debris gets underneath here. However, I don't really think that was an issue because all of this was pretty much clean and spotless. There was, you know, no signs of water, and all of these posts, they are covered with these little caps anyway. This coupler here, this goes to the engine harness, and this is where the APP wires travel. So this plate is essentially a jumper harness. So ECU, we follow the wires, they go here, they go up, and then they go into this front cabin coupler. And this coupler here goes to the front chassis. It goes to the brake pressure sensor, clutch pressure sensor, and the throttle. So I'm going to take that out of the car too and make sure that's all good. But I'm not seeing anything internally that is shorting out in the ECU plate, which makes me feel good, makes me feel happy that I kind of did this right. However, I'm gonna make a few changes to this because if you guys remember at Gingerman, I had the fuel pump wire. The fuel pump wire here got burned out. And I had to kind of just hot wire it to full power, and I haven't had a chance to fix that. But basically, these are DT connectors. Most of these connectors are DT, and I think these are size 16 pins. And if I recall correctly, those only flow, I think it's like 16 amps of current. But basically, from the research I've done, it flows about 16 amps of current. And what I think happened to the fuel pump was it was asking for more, and it was causing these pins to get really hot because it's a lot of current flowing through there. And of course, you know, it's an aftermarket fuel pump for Hybridracing. So Hybridracing has some stats online, and I do think it can exceed 16, maybe even 20 amps. So I learned that these pins, they're not enough to flow that much current, obviously, because they're only rated to like 16 or 15 amps. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rewire this fuel pump, and I'm gonna double up the wires, and then I'm gonna have 2 sets of these wires going through a coupler. So 16 and 16, you know, we have up to 32 amps of current available. And I'm also gonna do the same thing for the fans, just to make sure I have enough overhead if I wanted to add more fans. I won't have a problem with the fan wire burning out. I'm gonna modify all this, gonna clean it up, gonna resheath all these wires, and continue to investigate what the potential issue of this throttle pedal position sensor errors is. Just in case you're curious, this is literally the current state of my office right now. Oh geez. This is pretty much mostly rewired where I needed to make corrections. These couplers go to This is the trans tunnel harness. Oh man, this is a mess. I have to obviously delete this burned out coupler. I have to add additional circuits because I'm doubling up the fuel. This is the whole front cabin harness. This here is what goes to the pedal position sensor. This is, I believe, brake pressure. That is brake light switch. This is clutch pressure, I believe. This goes to the wiper. This goes to the defrost, some grounds. That's mostly good. I don't need to modify this. I do just want to check the circuits for the throttle pedal APP. Front harness for the headlights and stuff, that's already in the car. So anyway, yeah, I mainly have to modify this guy. This harness here, this is the power steering harness. I'm gonna probably merge the trans tunnel harness and the power steering harness into one. Yeah, office is an absolute mess. Just wires and things freaking everywhere. All right guys, it's been 4 days of wiring hell. Not actually hell. I actually do enjoy wiring, especially when you have nice tools. So like I have this whole DT connector kit. It's not the real stuff, it's Amazon, so it's J-Ready or something. But you know, I have nice tools, I have nice, you know, couplers. And when you have nice couplers like this, you know, it's really easy. You know, you just boom, crimp the wire, done, pop the wire in, put the seal on, finish. You know, you don't really have to do a lot. So let's talk about the ECU plate first. I did add beefier grounds to this whole setup to make sure that there was no issue with this not being ground enough. And then I separated out my ECU ground to be by itself, just to make sure the ECU is not getting, you know, like mixed signals with the grounds. I remade some harnesses for the IC7. So now my IC7 is going to see all of the blinker functions and the headlight functions. So on the display, you know, it'll show if I have my left blinker on, right blinker on. Nothing really good on a racetrack, but you know, if I'm street driving, it's nice to know if I left my blinker on and if my lights are on and whatnot. That is the throttle position sensor, as you can see right there. This is what we thought we were having issues with. So I checked all the wiring from here to this coupler, to this sub harness, to the ECU plate, to the engine harness, and I found no issues. So I don't believe it's a wiring issue. I checked all the grounds, there's no grounds. You know, everything on the ECU plate seemed to be functioning normally. You know, no concerns there. Let's talk about my drive-by-wire issue. All of this work I've done here, I don't think has affected any of that. Maybe the extra grounds, potentially, but we have a few things. Number one, I have a brand new Penny and Giles something TPS 280 DP yada yada. This is the sensor that I currently have in the car, but a brand new one. So I have a brand new sensor just in case I need it. And I got a package from Haltech today, actually, which is pretty nice. Now, this is the ECU that I had in the car. This was my spare ECU that I got wet when I was washing the car because I forgot to cover the cowl. And it literally leaked right into these ports. The whole ECU was fried. It seemed to work after it dried out, but we tried it at Lime Rock. It did not actually want to run right. So, and I have a third ECU, a brand new one. Thanks to Haltech, you know, they kind of helped out with this issue a little bit. They looked at the data. They think it might be internal, but we are not 100% sure yet. And they want to make sure that, you know, I get out to the next event without any issues, just in case it is an ECU issue. So shout out to those guys, you know, they have great support. I sent them all the data. You know, I was talking to Rick at Haltech pretty much all weekend and after the weekend trying to brainstorm ideas. But what I'm gonna basically do is I have the new ECU installed and I'm just gonna use both of them and see what kind of data I get from both of them, right? And if the ECU is not the solution, then the next step is to try a new sensor. If that sensor does not solve the solution, I have another idea of pretty much, I don't want to do it, but tearing the entire engine harness down. It's a Rywire engine harness. It's loomed really nice with Raychem, so I'd have to cut it all apart and inspect all the wires. Don't want to do that. Or I might get rid of the lithium battery and go to like a standard AGM battery. That's what I've been up to the last few days, wiring. Now I'm ready to put it all back in the car and then do some more testing. So let's do that. All right, getting it installed, buttoned up, cleaned up, looking pretty nice. I like how it's all set up. Makes it really easy to spot what's going on. So yeah, up next, gonna work on the Rywire engine harness. So once again, plugs into the ECU, plugs into these two couplers, and then CAN will connect to this CAN jumper right here. So all that's together. So now, just once again showing you guys the issue that I thought was the root cause of the problem was this coupler right here. So you can see that top piece right there, it just unlocked itself. So for some strange reason, maybe this coupler's worn, but it keeps unlocking itself. And you can see this bottom left, there should be a pin there. It's obviously hard to see, but look, that's this wire right here. I could pull it right out. So yeah, I'm going to replace this coupler. Luckily, I have some spares. These are actual Haltech connectors. Those on the Rywire, I'm not 100% positive what those are. Could be Haltech pins, could be some aftermarket ones. Like these might just be generic. I don't know. But anyway, I'm gonna replace it with this one because I know this one's good because it's brand new and I never used it. Got a D-pin. This is how hard it should be to unlock this, right? Yeah, so you hear that snap? Unlocked, locked, unlocked. So pretty solid click. So this guy right here, I can't even click it because these wires are pulled. So yeah, that's the other problem, is once this coupler gets unlocked and the wire gets pulled, it's impossible to actually lock it because the wire is basically in the way. So, all right, let me depin this slowly. This is gonna be actually kind of stressful. Let me actually take pictures of this. I have the wiring diagram for these, but sometimes pictures are a little bit easier. That was pretty hard to come out. Okay, 4 down, like 36 to go. Man, these things are stubborn. This coupler out, probably throw it in the trash because it's been giving me nothing but problems. And then this coupler, brand new. Let's see how it locks somewhere. There we go, locked. Now this wire here, it ain't going anywhere. None of these are. So that's good. This other coupler is also good. There's no issues there. So nice. Looks good. And then now, one thing I noticed, these little plugs, they're very important because if you don't plug it, you will get debris in the coupler. So I see a few empty circuits. I have plugs, so let's do that. I'm gonna plug into the ECU I had at Lime Rock first because I'm gonna get more data to pinpoint where the issue is with the old computer and see if the new computer fixes it. But I got everything wired up, so kill switch on, and then ignition, which turns on the ECU,
Channel 5.
which will turn on CAN and all that stuff. And this will boot up. There we go. I added circuits for my blinkers and my lights. So this right here, this is high beams. Pretty cool. Turn on my lights. This guy. It goes into night mode. So right here, this is my flashers. This is pretty cool. Anyway, let's go on to my blinkers, because I think I might have messed up. Left blinker. Right blinker, no! And then, oh boy. So the cool thing is I could do like hazards. They're not really in sync. But anyway. And that's right blinker. What do we got? What do we got? Okay, that's good. Yeah. Right blinker and right blinker. Alright. Well, it looks like I might have just miswired it into the ISU7. Actually, I could just flip the wires. It's pretty simple. So anyway, that's the job done. Final thing that I plan on doing, I guess, increase the robustness of this electrical setup. So the command tower, I have removed it, and below it is my Haltech battery isolator kit. So this is essentially my kill switch here. This unit's pretty important because this determines if the car is on or off, right? What concerns me about this guy is that it is mounted on my trans tunnel because I wanted it pretty close to the battery and pretty close to all the electricals underneath this command center. But obviously, being mounted on the trans tunnel, there's gonna be a ton of heat from the exhaust. So what I wanna do is I want to put some gold foil tape on this unit, as well as the trans tunnel, try to isolate it from the heat a little bit, and then I'm going to sand this down a little bit to improve the grounding, because this unit itself is grounded to the chassis with these bolts, and then the ground wire from the battery here goes onto the unit, and this unit allows the battery to ground, or when it's off to not get ground, which doesn't turn anything on. So this unit, very important. I want to make sure that's not going to get too hot in a race. Gonna work on that right now, and then I should have everything basically rewired and ready to go, and then we'll do some testing with the throttle, and then we'll try the new ECU and go from there. So a lot of work to really not accomplish anything, but what we are doing is making the whole system a lot more robust. And also, to add to that, I now have spares of pretty much almost everything for this car. So if a throttle position sensor is actually at fault, then I have a spare. I had a little bit of a panic attack because I was trying to start the car and the car did not want to run. It was turning over, but it did not want to fire. And I was like, ah, shit, I probably messed up the coupler, or I messed up something within the harness. I realized that when I was doing the ECU plate with all the busmans on the bottom, so I think I took out a few fuses and I was swapping them, and I did not put the fuse for the ignition. But luckily, I have a sweet little Excel sheet, which is each of my busmans, right? So that's the busman on the far right, that's the middle, and that's the one on the far left. Of course, this is upside down because this is how I pinned it out, but I have everything labeled here. And then, yeah, I have all the harnesses and stuff. But anyway, yeah, just staying organized, and I can basically tell. I was like, hey, coils aren't firing. Busman on the far right looks like column 6 coils, 15 amp fuse there. And sure enough, I did not have a fuse there. So thank God I have good notes, because I can really, you know, see what everything goes and what color the wires are, what fuses I need, where the harnesses go to, yada yada. Anyway, so now the good news is we have a car that fires. And I'm gonna get some data here. Anyway, so car runs, all the wiring is good, so that's a good first step. And now I'm just gonna take data with the old ECU. I'm probably gonna turn the car off just because I don't want to be revving it at full throttle at, at 10 p.m. on a Friday. And basically I'm just gonna look over that data, make sure I'm still seeing some errors like I did on Lime Rock. And then I'm gonna try the new ECU that's underneath that one, and we'll do the same thing. I'll probably do that tomorrow just because it's pretty late, and honestly, I'm pretty tired. What is up, guys? I am on my way to a racetrack, and not one that you would expect. I've been doing a lot of work in the garage because I'm just going through the entire wiring harness. You know, I redid the entire cabin harness, and I went through the entire engine bay harness. You know, all the couplers, all the wires. I found a few areas where the harness was rubbing, but nothing that I think caused the issue that I had at Lime Rock. And yeah, so we're going to a racetrack today, because unfortunately I can't prove out the issue on the street. I actually drove the car at my hockey game last night on the suspect ECU and the suspect throttle pedal position sensor, and of course I have no issues because I already knew this, because at Lime Rock on the pace laps, you know, kind of going, you know, half speed, the car was fine. It was only until I went full throttle, you know, green flag drops, and then 3 corners later, you know, everything starts bugging out. So unfortunately, in order to prove out that I actually fixed the issue, I need to go on a racetrack. And the good news is, though, my friend Tom O'Gorman told me that there's a local circle track about an hour west of Columbus, and you can get pretty cheap track time. And we're gonna do some testing on a circle track. So the first time the Sedan's gonna be on a circle track, I think it's gonna be fun. My friend Tom is also actually gonna meet me there, and I think I'm gonna have him drive the car just so I can focus on diagnosing the issue and proving out that we actually fixed this. So step 1 is going to be run the course with the suspect ECU and the suspect pedal and confirm the error still occurs. If the throttle body voltage mismatch, if that still happens. If it does happen, I guess that's good, because that means we can now work on potentially fixing the issue, right? So potential solution number 1 is going to be swapped to a different Haltech ECU. So Haltech was fortunate, or was kind enough to send me an extra ECU to test this out. And then if that doesn't fix it, then my second option is to swap the throttle pedal position sensor. So I bought a spare one of those as well. And that's what me and Tom are gonna do today. We're just going to make sure this car is good, because the last thing I wanna do is go to my next event, Autobahn, which is this weekend, which is in 5 days, not even. I don't wanna go there with an unproven setup that will potentially cause issues once again. That would be a waste of my time, a waste of my sponsor's time, a huge waste of money. It would just be pretty stupid for me to go to this event not verifying that I actually fixed the issue. Yep, let's do some circle track racing, baby. Hell yeah, brother. Do it for Dale. I think that's it. Shady Bowl. Let's go, baby. Shake and bake. Oh boy. Alrighty, Shady Bowl. Here we are. We are here at the Shady Bowl. Got paddock all set up. I just did a few laps. I didn't record anything, but dude, this track's kind of nuts. It's so small, but you can go so freaking fast. It's crazy. Look at this. Look at the Eagles too. So yeah, it's like a D shape. Really weird. It's like a long straightaway, then it's pretty tight there, and then pretty tight there. But yeah, I just did a few laps, and the issue did reoccur. So that's good news, I guess, because now we can test and try some fixes and go from there. And my friend Tom's right there. He's gonna start driving now just so I can focus on diagnosing, getting data, and fixing the car. So first things first, I'm going to take the data off of the suspect ECU, and then we're gonna try the first fix, which is the alternate ECU. But let's download some data first and see what we got. Good? You're good. All right, got my test driver out there. We gotta make it to Nationals. We gotta make it to the Shady Bowl 500. All right, I'm gonna spot for Tom. So unfortunately, this is where the recording ends, but the situation gets even more interesting. So to kind of explain what happened here, Tom went out on the original ECU just so he can experience the TPS issue. So he did a few laps, ran you know, I don't know, like 5 or 10 laps, had the TPS failure occur. So he went back in, and then we put the brand new ECU in with the same map as what was on the other ECU. Nothing changed besides the ECU itself. So plugged in the new ECU, sent it back out, and after about 2 laps, I can tell something was not right. The car was not running right. It sounded terribly. I could visually see that it was not accelerating. So I basically stopped recording and immediately flagged Tom down to kill the car, come back to pits. So it was a really weird situation where we put a new ECU into the car and it did not run right. And then we actually put the old ECU back in the car and it ran totally fine again. So we were completely perplexed. And immediately hit up my guy, Rick at Haltech, and I was, you know, what the hell's going on here? We're trying to figure it out. And at this point, I basically had 3 days to get the car fixed and loaded up for the next event, which is Autobahn. So now I had 2 issues. One, I still had the throttle body TPS mismatch issue that was unsolved at this event, which was a big disappointment. And 2, I had a completely new issue where the new ECU was not running the car. It ran like absolute crap. You know, maybe that new ECU they sent, maybe there was something wrong with it. Maybe it got wet, or I don't know. I even opened it up and everything looked fine. We were getting pretty desperate because I could not figure out what was wrong with this. Once again, same map, both ECUs. So Haltech actually sent 2 more ECUs my way, overnight shipped, because at this point I had basically 1 day left until I had to go to Autobahn, and we're still fighting for the championship. And I needed to go to have, you know, good results. But now I had a car that did not run at all. I still had TPS issues. It was a stressful few days, and we were just pounding our head against the wall. We could not figure out what the heck was going on. The day before I was about to head out, Rick found the issue, and it was within the software. Something must have changed in the settings when the NSP software was updated, because back in the day, about a year ago, this is what the settings look like for the flex fuel sensor. And it's basically a threshold limit. So it'll read the ethanol content at idle, but as soon as the engine goes above 3,000 RPM and 7% throttle, it stops reading the ethanol content. Now, I guess the Haltech software must have updated because that percentage changed to a PSI. And the value in that table, I guess, must have defaulted to the minimum value of negative 14.5. So what that means is the new ECUs were never allowed to read the ethanol content because my engine is always above negative 14.5 PSI, even at idle. Those new ECUs thought the fuel was gas because the flex fuel sensor was never reading the ethanol content. So that meant that the car was running super lean because obviously ethanol requires a lot more fuel to run properly. So super weird situation, but fortunately a super easy fix. All we did was turn off that threshold value. So let's just read it all the time. And of course, after that, we fixed one of the issues. We still had that TPS issue though. At this point, our thought was maybe it was related to the ECU because everything I did, you know, to the wiring harness, engine bay, engine harness, nothing seemed to actually fix the issue. The throttle pedal position sensor didn't fix the issue either. You know, we thought that it's got to be the ECU. So we went into Autobahn with that new Haltech Elite 1500 ECU and, you know, hoped for the best. That's basically the story after this test session. Like I said, hectic 3 days to try to figure this out. But we did it. Once again, you know, super, you know, unfortunate kind of silly issue that occurred with the update. But, you know, Haltech stepped up and they helped me all the way through and we figured it out. So hopefully you guys liked and enjoyed this video. You know, like, comment, subscribe, and the next event will be Autobahn. And then after that, I have one more event, which is Pit. And that would basically be the end of the 2024 season. And then we could finally start updating you guys on what's going on this year, which is, it's March 2025. I'm a little behind on the editing, but anyway, I'll catch you guys in the next video, and we'll see if the TPS issues have been fixed.